This is CBC Here and Now.
They've recommended to Cabinet, to government, to suspend him pending the review of that citizens' rep report. So it is a decision of the government.
Chief Electoral Officer Bruce Chalk has been suspended amid allegations of misconduct. An independent review will examine those allegations.
An awful lot of military traffic coming through here, especially C-130 Hercules.
As war rages in Ukraine, we're looking at the role Newfoundland airports are playing to help arm Ukrainians. Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. The province's chief electoral officer has been suspended. Exactly why Bruce Chalk has been suspended still hasn't been made public, but it comes following a citizens' representative investigation into allegations of misconduct at Elections NL. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
The Justice Minister says Bruce Chalk was suspended following the advice of the House of Assembly Management Commission.
So they have reviewed that report and made a decision to do a review of the citizens' rep report. And in the meantime, they've recommended to Cabinet, to government, to suspend him pending the review of that citizens' rep report. So it is a decision of the government, and we have accepted the recommendation of Management Commission. And as I said, we're happy to accept that recommendation coming from all parties who sit on the Management Commission.
Chalk has been suspended with pay. As Chief Electoral Officer, he was responsible for running the 2021 provincial election. It was a tumultuous election plagued by complications caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Chalk's suspension comes months after the Citizens' Representatives report was first raised in the House of Assembly. The Speaker of the House, Derek Bennett, has had the report for many months. Independent MHA Paul Lane was the first elected official to ask questions about it. He said it dealt with allegations of harassment and bullying at Elections NL. Lane pushed the government to act quickly to protect people working at Elections NL if the report found the allegations were true. NDP leader Jim Dinn says it's taken the Speaker too long to act on this report.
Knowing full well the implications to the people who made the complaint, considering that we're in the process of there's several judicial challenges of the election results. Anyone in having that in their hands should have realized we need to move this along expeditiously and make sure that there's ultimately that transparency.
The Progressive Conservatives say the coming independent review should also happen quickly.
Well, I would hope it'll be done in an extremely timely fashion once they appoint someone to do the review itself. A lot of the information I would suspect is contained in the Citizens' Rep report itself, so it should be, a quicker process here.
The report hasn't been made public, and the Justice Minister says it won't be until after an independent review is completed. There's no specific timeline for when that will happen. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Stephenville International Airport has a new owner and a new name, the Stephenville Diamond International Airport. After a board vote this afternoon, Ottawa businessman Carl Diamond signed a deal to take over the airport. Diamond runs the Greater NL Partnership, a property management company based in St. John's. In a media release issued just 30 minutes ago, Diamond says he looks forward to increasing the airport's passenger traffic and building a world-class technological hub for Eastern Canada. The airport has already launched a new website and social media pages. Its first order of business, upgrading the runway in the coming weeks to meet the national standards for large aircraft.
Another beautiful summer day for most of us today. We did have a cold front move through, which sparked some thunderstorms yesterday across western portions of Labrador. So your temperatures are down a bit cooler. We do have another another cold front that's going to move through and drop the temperatures in some other areas as well, and also bring the risk of some thunderstorms. There it is there. But what we have going on right now is that area of low pressure continuing to bring a couple of fronts right along with it, and some showers already arriving on the southwestern portion of the island. Taking a look at what's happening out there right now in Port aux Basques, there's those showers on the webcam there. 14 degrees right now. As we head through the next couple of hours, temperature is going to dip just by a degree, but we are looking at more rain on the way, and some of that rain will make its way towards eastern Newfoundland as well. The full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, come Canada Day, there will be new rules for discharging fireworks in Corner Brook. The city has developed new regulations and guidelines around neighborhood fireworks. Here Now's Troy Turner has this report.
The choices are numerous. Fireworks come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Now, in Corner Brook, they also come with lots of rules governing their use.
What we've done with this bylaw is try to accommodate both views of fireworks. We have a group of people that love fireworks. I love fireworks. But we do also have a group of people that don't like fireworks and find it very disruptive to their lives. So what we've tried to do in this bylaw is to balance that.
The bylaw says they can be discharged at certain times on Canada Day and New Year's Eve. Beyond that, a permit is required.
One of the big complaints is pets. They're quite fearful. Dogs especially are quite fearful of the noise that fireworks put off. And hypersensitivity, we have some people in the city that suffer or experience that. So to allow them to prepare and know that fireworks are going to be restricted to these times works very well.
The SPCA usually gets calls from pet owners affected by fireworks.
If I know that there's going to be fireworks and my animals are conducive to being upset with them, then I would consider making sure that they're indoors, that the windows are closed, probably have the TV on, the radio on, and do some sort of an activity with them that keeps them occupied.
Drover says regulations are a good step. Now, she says, public awareness is key.
I understand that they're considering doing permits for outside those other 2 days. Well, that would be fine, provided that when the permits are issued, that there's enough time to get a permit, and when they're issued, that they're publicized.
Fireworks are permitted in people's yards and open spaces, but must be 300 meters from other buildings.
We're talking about seniors' homes, hospitals. I don't think not all these people would enjoy the noise that's created by fireworks. Places of worship is another one. We want you to stay 1,000 feet away from those places, unless, of course, the organization has given you permission to do so in writing.
They have been passed and approved by City Council. They are in effect as of this week, just in time for the Canada Day celebrations. Troy Turner, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, meanwhile, the City of St. John's is also reminding people about its fireworks bylaws. Family fireworks are allowed on Canada Day between 7:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Anyone using them must be at least 18 years of age. There will also be public fireworks on Canada Day happening at 10 p.m. over Kitty Vitty Lake. We've become accustomed in recent months to seeing Ukrainians arrive at St. John's Airport as they flee the war in their country. But what's less obvious is what's heading the other way, weapons of war. And airports in this province have become a vital waypoint. Terry Roberts reports.
Ukrainian soldiers fighting Russian soldiers. Like the invaders, their weapons come from outside Ukraine. From the start of the war, Ukraine has called for help. And help's been offered.
This so-called supplemental funding addresses the needs of the Ukrainian military during the critical weeks and months ahead.
Canada remains determined to be there to support Ukraine.
That military support for Ukraine is often in the sky over St. John's. The transports touch down here to refuel, and they're touching down a lot. Planes like this landed 131 times in May. Aviation buffs have noticed.
There's an awful lot of military traffic coming through here, especially C-130 Hercules, which are 4-engine propeller-driven transport planes.
Same story in Gander. Airport officials say the information is sensitive, so they won't release any numbers. But Gander Airport CEO Reg Wright says military traffic in recent months is double what the airport recorded in pre-pandemic times. Speaking in generalities, there is a significant air bridge created by the crisis in Ukraine, Wright wrote in a statement to CBC News. The airports in St. John's, Gander, and Goose Bay have a long history of being a waypoint for military cargo. They were vital for Allied forces in the Second World War, and another European conflict is once again proving their value. Why? Geography. It's why dozens of commercial airliners and thousands of travelers were redirected to Newfoundland and Labrador airports following the 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States. And it's why Gary Hebert is able to take photos like this on most days at St. John's Airport.
We are geographically the closest point to Europe. It's the shortest route across the Atlantic.
This defense and foreign policy analyst is not surprised at the role being played by Newfoundland and Labrador airports.
It's a logical place to stop for refueling overnight if you've got crew time issues, flight time schedules, those types of things. It's long been a great transit point for aircraft going across the Atlantic Ocean, and it remains so today.
Long runways and modern services also help attract these planes.
We've got the facilities here to look after crews if they're going to be here overnight, and there's facilities here to repair the aircraft. If an aircraft lands with some sort of technical problem, it can generally be taken care of here.
In St. John's, military flights practically disappeared during the pandemic, but they're back, and so is the business that lands them here. This hotel booked nearly 1,400 room nights to military personnel in May. 11% of overall business, says the manager. It might be good for business if you're an airport fuel provider or a downtown hotel or restaurant owner. But everyone knows the reason this is happening. On another continent, a call for help in a fight to survive. Howitzers, guns, medical supplies, all to keep Ukrainian soldiers in the fight.
For the folks in Newfoundland, dating back to the Second World War when my grandmother was stationed at Torbay, you've got a strategic piece of real estate that comes in awfully handy when you're looking to do those long haul flights with this kind of a kit.
St. John's Airport has two connections to Ukraine. First, airplanes like this, loaded with weapons to help push back the Russians, land here to refuel. And secondly, this airport is where Ukrainians fleeing the war take their first steps towards a new life here in Canada. So the longer this war drags on, the more the connection deepens between this airport and that conflict that's raging in Eastern Europe. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
People who get an income supplement or seniors benefit will soon get a boost. Quarterly payments are going up 10%. The income supplement provides up to $1,000 a year for low-income families with children. About 62,000 households take part. More than 50,000 people receive a seniors benefit, which means eligible seniors will receive up to $1,444 annually. Now, you don't need to apply for the supplement, but you do need to have up-to-date tax returns filed. The increase is part of government's plan to help with the rising cost of living. Well, here's one high-tech way of dealing with a staffing shortage. Maritime Robotics in Nova Scotia has built server robots. They're designed to take your order and deliver food while dining out. The CBC's Preston Mulligan reports.
Never get tired, they can work as many weekends and as much overtime as you need, and they're never late. They do need to be charged, though.
Oh, wow, look at this. What is it?
03, your order has arrived.
Sushi Jet in Halifax put this robot on the floor last week, and so far, the customers are impressed.
Ordering from a robot definitely elevated this whole dining experience. It's something I never had experienced before in Halifax, and just eating here is enjoyable, and then make it something we want to keep visiting back and then bring friends back to chat about, to learn about the technology as well.
The machines are built by Maritime Robotics. Staff there made a presentation to the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia during the pandemic after so many restaurants reported the same problem, a serious labor shortage. These robots were pitched as not just a cool curiosity, but an actual innovation, a way to address a lack of human servers.
Introducing automation can be controversial because some people might think the robots are going to take their jobs, but our idea is to use a robot as an addition to the team to better assist people and reduce their workload.
The robots are basically runners. After the customer orders some food on a device, staff in the kitchen load the trays, tap in a code that matches the table, and the robot does the rest. If something gets in its way inside a busy restaurant, it'll stop and wait.
We basically tell our server, they will reduce their labor intense greatly because they don't have to work, walking back and forth to the kitchen, waiting for the order while they have more time to interact with the customer, provide us, the better customer service.
Maritime Robotics is renting the robot to Sushi Jet on a trial basis for now. They're hoping more restaurants take notice. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, if this all sounds familiar, that might be because a St. John's sushi restaurant has been using robots during the pandemic to help serve their customers. Bellabot, the cat, has been rolling up and down the aisles of Sushi Island during the pandemic in both of the store's locations. Bellabot, however, was created by a company in China. The Pow Wow is back on. Conn River is getting ready to welcome thousands of people right here to celebrate. We'll have special coverage of all the Pow Wow prep coming up.
Well, if you like the humidity, you'll like the next couple of days. We do have a bit of relief on the way as well. I'll get into the full forecast details coming up.
Have 7 days to remove their gear.
30 years ago,
the lowest level of cod stocks ever recorded.
the cod moratorium. Everything changed.
There's nothing left here anymore.
Generations later, life is still changing for people, communities, and the ocean. The moratorium, July on CBC Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, another day in paradise, another nice day in St. John, some sunshine. It's pretty humid out there, though.
It is very humid out there. We've had a pretty nice stretch of humidity.
Yes.
In fact,
Great for the skin.
It is. It's pretty nice, though, because it was fairly dry up until now. Let's take a look at where we sat today, though. Those temperatures a bit cooler for portions of Labrador, rather. Lab City at 15 degrees today, and as you head further east and south, that's where all that warm temperatures are. 25 degrees in Cartwright today, same thing in Mary's Harbour. And temperatures across the board, even 26 in Badger. Beautiful afternoon. And 21 in Bonavista. Those temperatures still a bit cool along the south coast, 15 degrees in Burgeo. The good news is the pattern shifts a little bit, and those temperatures should warm up over the next couple of days. Taking a look at what's going on outside, a beautiful evening, a little bit of cloud cover in the mix, but still 25 degrees, feeling like 30. And speaking of that humidity, if you're thinking it has been very humid over the last 5 days, in fact, with those humidex values, either 30 or above for 5 days in a row. So this is the longest stretch of humid weather that we've had in June in St. John's. And if we hit the humidex value of 30 tomorrow, then we break the all-time record in June. So taking a look at the forecast tomorrow, depending on how much sunshine we see, we may get close to that 30 mark, but the humidity will definitely still be around. So there's where we're sitting. Humidex values everywhere else across the province, more like 29 in Gander right now, 27 in Deer Lake. And as we head towards the west coast, feeling more like 24 in Corner Brook, and a bit of humidity up across the Big Land, feeling more like 23 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Cartwright. Now you're sitting at 18 degrees. And if we take a look at where your temperatures were sitting earlier today, you did see humidex values into the 29 is what it was feeling like, with your temperature reaching 25 degrees today. We see that wind shift, westerlies to northeasterlies, and then we see that big drop in temperatures. That is a perfect indication that a cold front moved through, and that's exactly what happened. That is the cold front that sparked some thunderstorms for you in Lab West yesterday. Now, we're starting to see some showers on the southwestern portion of the island right now, and we're going to continue to see those showers moving across southern areas of the island and eventually even central as we get into the morning hours. But you can already see some showers in and around the northeast coast, some clearing. That was earlier today, but we're starting to see some clearing skies now. So taking a look at the future tracker for tonight, that rain, like I said, will continue for the southwest through central. We may see a few showers for the Avalon as well, but overall I think it should be combined to the southern half of the Avalon tonight. Same thing for the Burin Peninsula. But eventually as we get into the early morning hours, you are going to look at a better chance of showers. Temperatures tonight will be a mild again, anywhere from 14 to 16 degrees. We're not really seeing a whole lot of change in the forecast over the last couple of days. Winds out of the southwest between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour in some areas, but mainly around 20 kilometers per hour. Up across Big Land, those cooler temperatures definitely down to 7 degrees tonight in Cartwright, but those winds will ease for you. So as we head through tomorrow, that area of low pressure I showed you a little bit earlier is going to start to move in with that cold front extending across Labrador, and we're going to talk about that risk of some thunderstorms for you again, but generally unsettled for the eastern half of the island tomorrow. The chance of showers, we may see a few peaks of sun, but overall I do think it will be a bit unsettled. I don't think the showers are going to amount to much, but that risk will certainly still be there. There's that cold front moving through, so we're talking about between noon and about 5 o'clock is when you'll see that risk of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. And then those showers will work their way east as we head through the evening hours and into Thursday even. So as far as temperatures go tomorrow, I have us at 22 degrees in St. John's. Again, we may reach that 30 humidex value depending on if we see a couple of degrees warmer than this if the sun does come out. As we head towards central, temperatures a little bit warmer into the mid to high 20s, cooler again along the south coast as you head towards the west coast. Nicest weather at this point, looking like some sunshine, a little bit more comfortable, 23 degrees in Corner Brook, and then the northern peninsula, you're looking at your temperatures in the 20s as well. Mary's Harbour, your temperature is going to drop, but you should still sit around 17 through the day tomorrow. There's that risk of thunderstorms in for Lab City. Temperature will be about 21 degrees. The winds will be a bit brisk when those thunderstorms move through, though. You could see gusts around 60, even 60 plus kilometers per hour. So we'll talk about the humidity when it goes away and what the long weekend forecast is looking like.
Well, today we're going to have some tips for folks who have those shady gardens. I'm joined by Todd Boland of the Botanical Garden. So if someone does have a shady garden, just not much sun getting through, whether they have like old trees blocking the sun, what are some of the best things that they can plant?
Okay, so what we got to think about when we're talking about shade is immediately get rid of the idea of having like a rose garden, peonies, big flamboyant blossoms. Okay, we're going to think about foliage. So probably the #1 foliage plant for shade that most people are going to be familiar with are hosta.
Yes.
And hosta has such a huge variation in the plants. You can get little tiny little miniature ones, only a couple of inches tall, and you get ones like Sum and Substance, and these are hostas that are going to get up 3 to 4 feet high with almost rhubarb-like leaves. Okay, so a lot of variation, and a lot of variation in textures, and a lot of variation in foliage color as well.
And it'll fill out the space nicely too.
Very, very quickly, because a hosta is sort of like a good wine. The older they get, the better they get, right? So you plant a little hosta in the ground, you're buying it in a nursery, it's a relatively small little plant in a 6-inch pot. 2 or 3 years from then, it's going to double its size. A couple more years, it's going to double again. And here in the garden, we have over 70 different varieties of hosta.
Wow.
And we have some that I just can't get my arms around because they're so huge, right? And some of these are dating back 25, 30 years. So once you have them in your garden, they're very, very long-lived. Another good companion plant for hostas are ferns. And I think of ferns as being sort of an underutilized plant. A lot of people, we see them in the forest, they look lovely there, but they actually work very well in the garden as well. And here in the Botanical Garden, we use a lot of ferns. I like to intermix the ferns with the hostas and other shade-loving plants, and they provide that really nice contrast in the foliage. Because as I mentioned, we're not concerned with flowers. We're going to really look at the foliage of the plants, see how different types of foliage can blend together, get nice little contrasts. So you got those big bold leaves of a hosta, and then you got the very fine feathery foliage of ferns mixing with those. And even without flowers, we've created a beautiful contrast in the garden.
Is there any way to get any color in a shady garden?
Okay, so it depends on how much shade you have, okay? And there's different types of shade. So right now where we're standing, we're sort of under deciduous trees. So we're getting what we call dappled sun. And a lot of plants will tolerate dappled sun quite happily and can still provide you with a fair amount of color. Certainly when it comes to annuals, probably the best one to grow for color are going to be the impatiens. They do very, very well in the shade. Wax begonias will do very well in the shade. The non-stop begonias, lobelia. So there are a number of annual plants that you can put into your garden that, even in a fairly shaded spot, that will still put on a good show for you in the summer.
And you were talking about like the dappled shade. So that's like there's a little bit of sun that comes throughout the day, right?
Exactly.
Like a part shade.
Exactly. So, there's different types of shade. So you have shade, say, on the north side of a house. Well, that's very dark shade. It's not going to get any light there at all. If your house is white in color, you may get some reflected light. So that can make a big difference versus if you have a very dark colored home. The shade under evergreen trees, under conifers, your spruce, your fir, your pines, that's very dense. It's dark year round. Not a lot of plants are going to be happy under that deep a shade. Hostas, ferns probably will do okay, the periwinkle. But to create a more tapestry of foliage that we're seeing here in the garden, we love dappled shade. So dappled shade is under deciduous trees, and you get little rays of sun. You get little spots of sun here and there on the leaves throughout the day. And what's nice about that as well is that you're getting the leaves swaying in the wind, you're looking down on the ground, you're seeing the shadows moving around throughout the entire day, and it creates a sense of movement in the garden. And we sort of think about gardens being somewhat static at times, but when you got that dappled shade and you got those little spots of sunlight that are moving around amongst the foliage, it really does add to the garden situation.
Yeah, I have some shady areas in my garden, and one thing I have too, and I think you have it here, the Solomon seal does quite well there too.
That's another great contrasting plant, again, with all the others that we've been talking about, the hostas and the ferns. And it's a nice tall plant. So if you are creating like a border situation in the shade, then you can use the Solomon seal in the back of that border because they're going to get up 3-4 feet in height, and sometimes if they're very lush, they may even reach closer towards 5. Okay, so you've got that beautiful foliage, the way that it's sort of almost like little pairs of hands all along the stem. So again, the whole idea of foliage. The ostrich ferns that we have here in the garden are one of the taller ferns that we have, and that's actually the edible fiddlehead fern. So if you're interested in creating an edible garden, even in the shade, you can still be able to do that. So
the fiddleheads in the spring?
In the spring of the year. I mean, we think about New Brunswick as being the fiddlehead capital of Canada, I think. But the fiddlehead ferns are native in Newfoundland. And early in the spring, probably around early May, you just get that little fiddle just starting to come up out of the ground. That's the time to harvest it. So if you are growing ostrich ferns, don't take more than half of the new little emerging fronds. So you do need to have some of those fronds come to put energy back into the plant for next year, and of course to create the beauty that we're going to get from the plant throughout the rest of the growing season.
So Todd, sum it up for us. What are some things that people can get for the shade? We have hostas, we have Solomon seal, ferns.
And we have astilbes, another great plant. Lots of different varieties of primroses will work well in the shade. And if you're lucky, you can try the Himalayan blue poppies. There's also a lily called the Martagon lily, which is one of the few lilies that will grow quite well in the shade. We have hellebores, another good choice. There's a fair number of plants. It's surprising how many plants will do quite well in the shade.
Okay, some great suggestions there. Thank you so much, Todd.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
And if you have any suggestions for topics that we can cover on these gardening segments, if you have some questions, just send us an email at hereandnow.nl@cbc.ca.
Mira, Esteban, yo voy a me quedar en México. Le gusta que le guste.
Pues yo me quiero ir a Newfoundland con mamá y Evan, así es que mejor me voy para la casa.
Earn is the title of a new play that opens here at the LSPU Hall tomorrow. Stay tuned, we'll tell you about this play. Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, we've been talking about lots of new events starting now that the pandemic has kind of entered a different phase. And once again, here at the LSPU Hall, there's a new play that's opening. It opens tomorrow. And the person responsible for this play is called Earn. Joins me now, Santiago Guzman. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice meeting you, Anthony. Thank you so much for being here.
So the play is called Earn, as in U-R-N, not E-A-R-N. What's the play about?
The play is about two siblings who moved from Mexico years and years and years ago, and they have been disconnected for a fair bit, but they reconnect at their mother's funeral when they have to make a decision of where to inter their mother's ashes, if it's their homeland, Mexico, or their adoptive home of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So does the tension revolve around, is it Mexico City? Is that the other? Okay, so it's either St. John's or Mexico. So what happens as brother and sister try to make this big decision?
Well, that is the entire point of the play, trying to make that decision. I guess for me as a playwright, what I was looking for was to discuss this experience of immigrant people coming to a beautiful province like Newfoundland and Labrador, and that decision of finding themselves as part of the community and the connection and the sense of belonging to this place. So in the play, the siblings have to discuss that because they have an understanding of what Newfoundland means to them, but what it actually meant to their mom who is gone.
All right, and I guess part of the tension is the audience is watching thinking, okay, is it going to be here in St. John's? Are they going to go to Mexico DF? No spoilers, don't want any spoilers. What did you want to make as in terms of a message in the play for an audience to think about? Because an audience, you'll have lots of local born townies and people from the island, and you'll probably have people from Latin American countries and countries all over the world. What do you hope the audience will take from this?
I think what I want is audiences to appreciate Newfoundland and Labrador from a diverse perspective. What I want is audiences to see our beautiful province from the perspective of an immigrant relationship of siblings that we usually don't see on stage, and the way that we understand what Newfoundland and Labrador looks like, but just from a different point of view. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
And tell me a little bit about your character. Is it you as a boy, or is it a combination? Who's your character in this play?
Well, in the play, I am playing Esteban, who is the younger sibling in this relationship. Of course, I think that I put a little bit of Santiago in both of the characters, and you will see that especially in their different point of views and perspective of a conversation that I've had with myself. But for this character, this is the character who came here when he was younger than his sibling. And to me, this character feels more connected to Newfoundland and Labrador than the other character because of that, because he got to grow up here and be immersed in the Newfoundland and Labrador culture. And I think that, of course, he has a little bit of me, and there are so many topics that we discuss. We discuss the immigrant experience, language barrier, queerness, and culture for sure.
All right, and how do you get along with your sister overall in this play?
Well, there is a reason why we stopped speaking to each other. And when you come see this play, you will learn what happened, what was the thing that split this relationship. Because what you see in the play is as they are trying to figure this out about their mom's ashes, we get to see a lot of how was their relationship before they moved to Newfoundland. So when they were still in Mexico, up to the point where their relationship broke.
Tell me about your character in this play.
So my character name is Mariana. She is about 30s, and she came to Newfoundland in Labrador when she was 14. So she kind of grew up here to study, and but she has a lot of kind of missing Mexico. So we have all this discussion with my brother about taking mom back or not.
So tell me, what is it that you like about performing in this play?
The relationship between two siblings and this important decision. And I kind of feel represented too because I'm an immigrant as well.
So let me ask you the most difficult question then possible. After you've had a full life, would you rather be here at the end, or would you like to go back to Brazil?
If I died here, I will stay here. Yes. If I were in Brazil. When I die, yeah, I'll stay there.
Okay, well, let's not talk about the end. Let's talk about the beginning. All the best in this play. I hope that it has a good run. I know you're here for 2 nights. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see you all.
Coming up tomorrow morning on CBC Radio's Newfoundland Morning, hear from a Corner Brook cycling enthusiast who's starting a bike co-op to help people have a low-cost and friendly access point into all forms of cycling. Then at lunchtime on Crosstalk, it's Whales Tales with guests Dr. Jack Lawson and Melissa Abbott.
Driving down the highway, people are pulling up alongside, taking pictures while they're driving.
Coasting across Canada, we'll see some of the classic cars taking part in the ride, including Joey Smallwood's Land Rover.
About 19,000 fishermen and fish plant workers are out of work.
The entire area is off limits to cod fishing.
To ensure that the northern cod survives as a species. The proposed compensation is hardly more than welfare.
After the cod moratorium, there was a heaviness around the community and a lot of people left.
Bonavista is one of those rural anomalies.
There's a big resurgence of people coming back.
You have this bucolic surrounding, and then you have somebody that has a whole other concept about color, shape, and form.
People think it's one of probably the premier festivals in the country now.
There's a lot of standing up for our own rights as First Nations.
I happened to see the John Cabot statue, and I immediately was drawn to wanting to do some sort of intervention with it.
Some were not overly comfortable with the idea of covering the statue.
I profoundly believe the contemporary art can contribute to finding pathways forward.
Welcome back. The parking lot of Confederation Building had an added touch of class this morning. Dozens of classic vehicles were on full display to mark the 55th anniversary Coasters Tour. The tour will roll across Canada, making pit stops in small communities until finally reaching BC in September.
Well, today is a couple, we're kicking off with Heritage Month, and Minister Stoodley signed a proclamation for that. But also we're here with the Canadian Coasters. There's about 100 people that are going to travel in classic cars all the way from St. John's out to Victoria. And they'll be kicking that off on July 2nd, and we invited them out here today to partake in this proclamation as well.
The Coasters Tour started in 1967. I've been on the tour, this is my third time. I started in 2010, and I went in 2017, and now again in 2022. We get to meet the real people of Canada, the small town people, and it's just such a wonderful experience.
Okay, we have here a 1954 Cadillac. It's fully loaded with factory air conditioning and power windows, power steering, power brakes, power seats. It's got everything that they had back then. We've had it for 30 years now. Driving down the highway, people are pulling up alongside, taking pictures while they're driving. It's so silly. And to gas up the car takes a while too, because you put the gas in, and then people are talking, and you got to stop and talk to them all the time. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, we got a little piece of Newfoundland history here. So this was a Land Rover that was owned by the government of Newfoundland and was assigned to Joey Smallwood. Now he took that across the island. He was probably the first four-wheel vehicle to take across the island, and it was pretty rough in 1958. He visited the whole island, and then he was instrumental in the drive for 65 when they wanted to get this whole highway finished and paved as part of joining Canada.
It's kind of a reunion of people here with some of us have been on a tour a few times, and then now we're meeting a whole bunch of new ones. I think we got about 25 new ones, so it's just a real good friendship we developed.
So it's a great event, and it's a nice day. A little windy, but it's a beautiful day.
British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for helping wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls. She was also fined $750,000. The sentence was handed down today in a New York courtroom. Maxwell was convicted in December of recruiting and grooming girls for sexual encounters with Epstein. Maxwell, who's now 60, was facing a maximum of 55 years behind bars. The prosecution wanted at least 30 years. The defense argued for no more than 5. Epstein died in a Manhattan jail cell in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex offenses. The death was ruled a suicide. The U.S. Congressional Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol building in Washington held an unscheduled hearing today. An aide to Mark Meadows, President Donald Trump's former chief of staff, gave surprise testimony. Cassidy Hutchinson is being billed as a star witness by the committee.
That evening was the first moment that I remember feeling scared and nervous for what could happen on January 6th. And I had a deeper concern for what was happening with the planning aspects of it.
Hutchinson made those comments about a White House meeting on January 2nd. Those at the meeting included Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani and Hutchinson's boss, Mark Meadows. She testified that following the meeting, Meadows told her, quote, things might get real bad. She went on to say that Trump knew there were armed demonstrators at his rally prior to the assault on the Capitol. Hutchinson has already testified before the committee 4 times. Today's session, though, was her first public appearance. The G7 summit in Germany has wrapped up. In his closing remarks, Justin Trudeau pledged another $350 million in aid to Ukraine.
To continue supporting Ukraine, Canada will provide a loan of $200 million to the Ukrainian government to help meet its urgent liquidity needs. We'll also invest over $150 million in new humanitarian development and peace and security support.
The funding will be used for things like grain storage facilities, landmine removal, and the investigation of human rights violations. The Russian invasion of Ukraine dominated discussions at the G7 summit. In their final statement, the leaders said they intend to impose, quote, severe and immediate economic costs on Russia. The prime target is Russia's oil sales, but the details are still being worked out. Well, the UN estimates that fighting has forced more than 5 million people to leave Ukraine. A new museum in Denmark is designed to provide a look at the refugee experience over the decades, including some of the buildings that were used to house people after the Second World War. It's also showcasing individual stories.
Well, this exhibition very much points to the personal memories of the refugees. So it's very intense, very emotional. From a political side, all the questions of refugees is very complicated. From the personal side, it is very easy. We have to stop the wars and we have to help the people.
Well, there are 2 main stories in the museum. There's, of course, the story about the German refugees coming here in the end of World War II. The other story is about refugees, about flight through the last 100 years coming to Denmark. I hope the visitors will get a broader understanding of why people flee, how they flee, and how it affects people to have been refugees.
Today, refugees are being reduced to numbers. One forgets that behind the concept of refugees, there are people who have their own stories to tell. Quite ordinary people who have become refugees because of something they have not chosen themselves. So I love this place, because here we see the stories, the living stories, instead of the numbers.
My brother, 2 years older than I, he was hospitalized in this very building, the other wing of this building. And I remember visiting him there. The refugees were looked after, they were taken care of, they had accommodation, they found a safe place, and for us, we got a chance to start a new life.
All right, time for a look at the long-range forecast now. The humidity is going to be lasting a little bit longer, you say?
Yeah, a little bit longer in some cases. We do have a bit of a change in the pattern that we've been seeing. It's been a constant southwest pattern, so areas along the south coast, not so happy about that, but there is a bit of a change. But that does also mean that we have some unsettled conditions heading into the long weekend.
Okay.
So that's unfortunate.
Yes, the all-important long weekend.
That's right. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head through Wednesday evening into Thursday. Now, this is good news. We do need rain, considering we really haven't seen a whole lot, but that along that cold front, that line of rain that you see, the green and the yellow, that is a cold front that's going to move through, and that's what's going to spark some thunderstorm potential for the western portion of Labrador. Now, it pretty much peters out as we head into Thursday morning. You're still looking at that chance of showers, but likely not the risk of thunderstorms as we head into the afternoon hours. We'll start to see some increasing cloud across the island, and then also the risk of some showers in the mix as well. That shower activity will head towards the coast of Labrador as well. Now, temperatures for Thursday will be a bit cooler into the teens, still around seasonal, what we should be seeing, seasonable, I should say, for this time of year. And then the temperatures across central Labrador, or central Newfoundland, are looking actually pretty nice. 27 degrees, a little cooler for St. John's. We should reach 20 degrees, but again, the chance of showers will stick around. And then Northern Peninsula, you're looking at about 18 degrees through the day on Thursday. Now, Thursday evening into Friday morning, it does look like Friday will stay a bit unsettled for the eastern half of the island. Now, this model is showing rain for Friday, which is Canada Day, and then even the chance of some showers for the west coast, western portion rather, of Labrador. Now, taking a look at my forecast, I do think we'll see a lot more sunshine than that, especially into the afternoon and evening hours. We should actually see skies clear out. So at this point, I have 26 degrees for Gander, 25 in Grand Falls, Windsor. That's where I think the warmest temperatures will be. Unfortunately, dipping a little bit for the eastern portion of the island, about 18 degrees in St. John's. Still fairly nice, just a little bit more comfortable than what we've been seeing. And then as far as the west coast goes, you're looking at between 20 and 24 degrees. 20 degrees in Port aux Basques. Temperatures have only been sitting in the teens for the southern areas anyway. The further north you go, you are seeing some warmer temperatures with this, obviously, but it does look like you should see some nice weather. Taking a look at the long range forecast, it does look a bit more unsettled than we have been seeing. Now, I do think Sunday will be mainly rainy, about 19 degrees through the day. And then as far as central and western Newfoundland goes, likely not as much rain, not till Sunday anyway, but your temperatures will be sitting between 25 and 26 degrees, a bit unsettled for the west coast as well. And then for eastern Labrador, you're looking at unsettled conditions through the weekend as well. Your temperatures generally sitting in the 20s, a bit cooler for Lab West, between 14 and 17 degrees. Now, speaking of the big land, we've got a red sky in Postville. Ethan Ford captured this great shot. Thank you for that photo. I love seeing those colorful skies.
Oh, it's great.
For sure, yes. If you have any wonderful weather photos that you'd like to share with us, send them to my Facebook page, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, such a beautiful, vibrant orange. Thank you for that, Ethan.
Red, orange. You see orange there? I see red.
Oh, do you? Well, yeah, actually red sky, of course. It is
it's all
with a tinge of orange.
It's all a shade anyway, that's right.
Well, that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.